Welcome to this week's episode of the Read Well podcast. My name is Eddy Hood, and I'm your host, where I believe it's more important to read well than to be well read. So grab your favorite book, open up your notes, and let's get ready to learn something fascinating. All right, welcome to episode number 2. We are talking about how to pick your next read. My name is Eddy Hood. I am the host of the Read Well podcast. I am so excited to be here with you today. I think this is an incredible topic. It's a weird topic, right? Like, how do you pick your next book? You think that would be easy, but for some reason it's not. It's like fraught with anxiety sometimes. Sometimes it's really hard to pick the books that you want to invest some time in. And so we're going to get a conversation going about that today. Now, before we do, it's important to understand the name of the podcast. The Read Well community I believe, that it is more important to read well than to be well read. And this is a concept that I absolutely love. To slow down and read one book well this year is far better than to read 50 books or 200 books quickly and get absolutely nothing out of them. Reading has changed my life. It has made me more appreciative, more curious, more interested. And that only came after I learned how to read. I thought I knew how to read. I went to school. I took all the classes. I got A's and B's in English. I loved English class. And I thought I was a good reader. I've read my whole life. But it wasn't until I was about 41 years old when I said, okay, I've read a lot of books. And honestly, I don't know that I can tell you a whole lot about them. I don't really know what I read. I was treating my reading like a checklist. And so that's why I've created this community, is because over the past few years, I've developed some systems and some tools to help me appreciate my books more and to spend more time with these amazing authors. A book is a conversation between you and an author. It is not a to-do list item that you check off. It is a chance for you to sit down at the feet of Aristotle or Robert Greene. Oh, God, love Robert Greene. Ryan Holiday, whoever it is that you want to sit down with and have a conversation with. That is an incredible amazing offer, and you can do it for $9.99 or whatever the cost of your book is. Anyway, so that's why I'm building this community. That's why I am so excited to be here. I love reading. I love it more than anything, next to my kids and my wife. All right, let's get into the topic today. How to pick your next read. Excuse me. Got my trusty drink here. I made a comment this morning in my live read with me session. If you are following me on YouTube, just go to YouTube and type in the Read Well podcast, and that's where you can watch the live version of the podcast and put up with my goofy looking face. And you can also, every morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, read with me. I turn on a live stream every day, and that's something I really enjoy, is actually building the habit of reading. But I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about that. So let's jump in on how to pick your next read. Okay. First and foremost, understand this. When you walk into a bookstore, it is, it's like Mecca in there. It's like the greatest world, the greatest place in the world is a bookstore. And if you're anything like me, you feel two different emotions at the same freaking time. The first thing I always feel when I walk into a bookstore is, that sort of like excitement, just the pure excitement of all of the opportunity, all of the potential, all of these cool things that I get to learn. At the same time, I often feel a sense of complete overwhelm. It's that thought of like, oh my gosh, where do I start? What book do I buy? And I usually go shopping with my wife, right? And I know that I can't spend my entire paycheck on my books because she'll divorce me. So I really only get to buy 1, 2, 3 books usually, because that's the common sense thing to do. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes I buy 10 books, but that's not the point. I have a limited resources and limited time. I can't read every book. Do you ever feel that, where you're like, man, I don't want to waste time on a bad book, and I don't want to buy a bad book. So I'm not going to buy a book. Excuse me. So that's a problem, right? We need to get you past that feeling. And I've got some tips for you today to help you overcome that sense of sort of pushing a boulder up a hill when it comes to picking the next book, the next read. Now, let's start off by getting clear. This next book that you're going to read, I'm going to challenge you not to read it, but to learn from it, to read it well, right? That means that the book that you're going to be starting or purchasing from the next bookstore visit, you're going to be spending some time with. You're going to be spending some time in conversation with that author, learning from that person, sort of digesting their knowledge, right? This author has put 10, 20, 30 years of life experience and wisdom into 368 pages, right? Concisely written out and easy to study. And that is now your job to open that thing up, grab a pencil and a paper and start taking notes. So yeah, you're gonna invest some time here. And I think that's also why it can be a little overwhelming to pick the next book, because you're thinking, ooh, I don't want to waste time. I don't want to waste energy. I don't want to waste mental currency here. So I'm going to hit pause on reading a book and I'm going to think about it. Right. And then we go off on our day and we just assume that one day we're going to start reading a book. Well, that's not going to happen. The only way to get started is to pick up a book and read. So we're going to dispel that myth right now, that the only way to start with your next read is to pick it. So let's get you started. A couple thoughts. First of all, whether you are this applies more to people who are new to the idea of reading well. Okay, if you're here, you're probably already a reader. You're just kind of getting it done. But if this is your first time going, wow, I probably could read at a deeper, more invested level instead of being a passive reader that's doing it simply for entertainment or distraction. I'm going to learn to read so that I can do one of two things. You see, reading allows you, if you're reading nonfiction especially, to do one of two things. First, it allows you to learn a new skill, right? So therein lies the idea that if you're going to learn a new skill, you don't want to read a book that's teaching you a skill you don't really care about or that you don't really want to invest time in. So that makes it hard to pick the next book sometimes too. Because yeah, you could go in the bookstore, you could get a book on how to golf, on how to cook, on how to speak French, on the Jungian psychology, whatever it is that you want to learn. Those skills are there to be had. The issue is not which one do I pick. The issue is how long and how complicated will this skill be, and am I going to be able to invest the time and the resources to do it? So, but that's the first thing that you get out of reading a book is the chance to learn a new skill. The other thing that you may or may not get out of reading a book is the ability to look at the world differently, to look at the world from the other side of the argument. See, we have built into us the need to only see one side of the argument, the side of the argument that makes us feel good about ourselves, the side of the argument that agrees with what we already believe in. We are very, very uninterested as human beings in saying, am I wrong? Is there more to this? Are there things I haven't considered? And that's what a book does for you. It allows you to sit with an author who's on the other side of the fence and say, hey, are you aware that ... And that's the great thing about a book. So yeah, when you're reading a book, you can learn a new skill or you could expand the way that you view and experience the world. So with all of that in mind, this is why we feel a little bit of overwhelm when we walk into a bookstore. And how do you pick your next book? And so what we often do, right, is we just buy a bunch of books, whole bunch of them, bring them home, and then we set them up on the, don't tell my wife I said this because I do it too, but we set them up on the nightstand or fill the bookshelves with them. And there are books everywhere in the house. I've got books. I've got books where books shouldn't be. Let's just put it that way. Makes me happy, whatever. But anyway, that buying strategy when you go to the bookstore is usually because you don't know what to read and you don't know how to pick what you should read next. So you just buy a bunch of stuff and hope that one of them is going to like work out for you. All right. Number one, I fully support that strategy because it keeps our bookstores open. And number two, like, you're going to spend your money on something, you might as well buy a bunch of books. But when you do get home, you do need to pick one of these books to read. And so let's give you some thoughts here. Okay, if this is your first time jumping into reading well, let's make your first read something that is accessible. Let's make it so that when you get into that book, you don't feel pressure to keep up. That's a challenging thing because, when you open the cover of a book, you can get excited about the content that's inside of it, all of the things that you're going to learn, the expertise of the author, and so on. But if that book is dense, just full of stuff, then it's going to feel like a job getting into it. It's going to feel like you're not going to be successful with that read because it's going to take years in some cases to read the dang thing, or at least a very long time. And we don't want you to feel that. I don't want you to feel that way. I keep saying we. I feel like I've got some multiple personality thing going on. It's just me in my basement. But I want you to read your first book well and not feel like it's fighting against you. I want you to be able to really consume it without having to sort of strain too hard. So one way you can do that is to look for authors who are writing sort of at that, 5th or 6th grade level or below. And that is not to say that we are not educated, right? The best authors take complicated works and put them at a 5th or a 6th grade level so that you can all understand them. And you can get something out of it and apply it. Some genres are better built for this than others, right? So if you're getting into philosophy books or something that's really sort of obtuse or just complicated, I mean, that stuff is going to take some real investment most of the time. So I wouldn't recommend a deep philosophy book for your first read, although those books are coming and those books are incredible. However, for the first time through, I do have some ideas for you on what you can read, and I'm actually going to give you 5 book recommendations here in just a minute. One of them, which I would consider a philosophy book, but it's not written at that PhD level, just deep sort of view. It is written more at the 5th, 6th grade level mostly, so that it's accessible to everybody, which is why it's sold millions and millions of copies. And it's a very, very good book. We'll get into those in just a minute. Okay, so this feeling that you have when you want to read a book, I want you to recognize the fact that you're excited to read. That's good. I celebrate you for that. The fact that you want to be a reader in a world that is, quite frankly, forgetting how to read. We are turning to mediums that will do the reading for us. I love Audible. I think Audible's great. I'm not speaking to ebooks or audiobooks. Okay, those are great. It's fine. However you consume books is great with me. What I'm speaking to instead is that we're turning to mediums that can do the thinking or the reading for us, and we can be doing other things passively or actively in the midst of reading that book. Maybe we're just watching YouTube videos in the background. Maybe we're just listening to podcasts in the background while we're doing our dishes. Perhaps we've signed up for an online course. These are really popular right now, and have been for a long time. But I mean, if you're anything like me, you sign up for the course, you're all excited, you watch the first few videos, and then you kind of peter out on the course. That's what happens, right? However, a book is a different kind of medium, and it asks you to really sit with it and read and think. So let's start with the idea that in order for you to pick your next read, it has to be accessible. It has to be something that doesn't sort of mentally scare you and freak you out when you look at it. So I would suggest making the book probably 400 pages or less, right? And ideally, if you can get in that 200 to 300 page realm, that's a great first read for anybody who's learning how to annotate books and take notes and build a note-keeping system. These are the things that I love. All right. The next thing is I would suggest making your first read paperback versus a uh, hardcover. I like both, but for me, hardcover books and some of the ones I'm going to give you here as an example are hardcover, which is funny. But I suggest a paperback because paperback is easier in the hands. It's easier to hold. It's not as heavy. Uh, you can stick it in your purse or in your back pocket if it's the right size, and get to work without it being a big bulky thing to carry around. You know, that is important. So we want this thing to be transportable and with you at all times. So let's make it easy to understand, easy to keep with you at all times. Those should be the requirements as you get in. And then the third requirement as we get in on how to pick your next read is, please, for the love of all that is good, pick a book that is exciting for you. Don't read a book because you've been told you're supposed to read it in order to be an educated human being. If you don't like Shakespeare, don't read Shakespeare. Like, come on, people. That is not how the book world works, right? These books behind me and all of the books in the bookstores were written for many kinds of people, many kinds of personalities, and you are one of those people slash personalities in the world. Not all of the books are going to apply to you. So just because it's quote unquote a classic or the best business book or the philosophy book you all should read doesn't mean you have to read it. So let's start with the idea that you have got to be excited about whatever is inside of this book. All right. That means that it's going to take a little experimentation, because I have found that we don't always know what we like and what we don't like as humans. It's interesting, right? We are sort of raised by our environment a little bit, and we kind of take on the likes and passions of the people around us and the society that we're in and the community and cultures that we're in. And that can be hard to go, wait a minute. What do I love? What gets my heart beating in the morning? What gets me excited to get out of bed? Those are the questions that I want you to answer before you buy your next book. If you're thinking, what would my family like me to read? What should my church expect me to read? What do I need to read for my job? I'm like, oh my gosh, people, come on. That is not the purpose of a book. The purpose of a book is to light you up, to get you excited about life. So I'm going to give you 5 recommendations for books here that I think are good starts for people, and I've tried to make them diverse so that they're speaking to different people. That being said, you may or may not have an interest here, and so don't necessarily use these 5 examples as books you should go buy, although I do recommend them. They're very good. Instead, ask yourself why I am recommending them to you. Again, I'm recommending them because they're written at a easy to understand level. They are less than 400 pages. They are easy to carry around. And for me, in my idea, they are speaking right to the things that I love about life. All right, let's jump into these 5 books. So, if you have ever made something in life, if you're the kind of person that wants to create things, pardon me here, get a drink. Talking on a podcast really messes up your throat. All right. If you're the kind of person that wants to make things, whether it is a business, a podcast like this, just so you know, this podcast would not be in existence if it wasn't for the book I'm about to recommend to you. But this book gave me courage to do my work, the work that moves me. I mean, come on, guys. I am every day making videos on YouTube and now making podcasts. And I actually learned how to code. People, I'm an accountant. My day job is an accountant, but I learned how to code because of this stinking book. This is a great book. And I'm really selling this thing, but it is a good one to check out. The thing is I learned how to code so that I could build a software tool that would help me get more out of the books that I read. Is that nuts? Like, I've spent the past year going to programming school and getting certified so that I can build something called Highlightish. Highlightish, if you think about highlighting a book and you add ISH at the end, you can go there now. You can sign up. It's definitely in its growing beta phase, right? I've got so many ideas and plans for this thing. But that business, I would not have had the courage to build that and get it started, nor this podcast, nor the things that I'm doing if it wasn't for what I learned here. This book is called The Practice, Shipping Creative Work by Seth Godin. Seth, if you are listening to this, which you're not because you are an icon, an icon in the thought leader world, but let's just pretend one day you come across this video. I want to thank you for this book. This book has changed my life. Let's see. Okay, it is small. Seth is cool too, right? If you're watching me on YouTube right now, the back end, Seth's got like these cool glasses. He's just a cool guy. Anyway, let's see. This book here is 250-ish pages. Okay, it's small, fits in your purse, or it doesn't fit in my back pocket per se, but I can carry it around easily. And I just loved it. The thing I loved about this book is it's written for my 8-year-old could understand this. He is a very smart 8-year-old, by the way, but he definitely could read this. But it's written in these little sort of chunks of ideas, right? If you know anything about Seth Godin, he writes a blog post every morning, has for like, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 years, 20 years, I don't know. But he writes these really sort of short, succinct blog posts. And that's kind of what this book is. It's like they're numbered. Like, for example, number 14 is titled, It's Time to Find Your Voice. Number 15, Finding Your Passion. Number 16, The Process and the Outcome. It's all of these really great little snippets of things that you could read to get you excited. But the point of the book is to help you, number one, find courage in doing work that matters to you, work that moves your heart. And it also teaches you that your work is not perfect. It's not ever going to be perfect. And the best thing you can do for yourself and your community is to ship your work, which means to hit publish, to hit record, to send it out there and just start building stuff. So here I am in front of my camera talking to you people, and I'm grateful for it. All right, let's see. Book number 2. If you like this one also is a game changer, but for very different reasons. If you like group dynamics and you're sort of fascinated by why we humans do the things that we do, and we can't really sort of get along for whatever reason, because like wired within us are these tendencies to sort of self-serve and self-promote and all of these kinds of things, like this gravitational force that pulls us into a stage of power, which bleeds into like how governments work and how countries work and how leaders come to the top. If you're interested in all of that and you like pigs, Animal Farm by George Orwell is just an incredible book. It's very small, so you could read this one rather quickly. That's not the point. Read it slowly and get the lessons out of it. 141 pages here, small paperback book. This one does fit in my back pocket, and for a week or two, that's where it lived. Sat in my back pocket as I read it to and fro. Animal Farm is this sort of metaphorical idea of a farm, and I'm not going to ruin it if you haven't read it, where the pigs are ruled by the farmer. Not just the pigs, all of the farm animals are ruled by the farmer. And dang it, they're just sick of it. They're sick of being treated poorly. The metaphor here, of course, is the government, right? The government is of any state, any country, any capital, oversees the people in whatever form or fashion, and the people get tired of it. So they overthrow the government to create a better government. And the thing that I love as the animals take over the farm is to watch how they sort of interact with each other in a way that I see on a daily basis in my own personal life with the people I interact with. There are games that are played. There are there's subterfuge and subtlety and manipulation and people being kind for the wrong reasons, all sorts of craziness, right? It's not a sort of pessimistic look at humanity. I wouldn't say that, but it is a very realistic look at humanity and why we are at times the animals that we are. This is a great book. If you like psychology, just check it out. It's really good. It's not a new book. We've all heard of it before, but it is a good one. Okay. Next, this book. Let's see. It's coming in. I feel like I'm announcing like boxers, coming in at 450 pounds, whatever. But this book is 250, 60 pages, somewhere in there. Deep Work by Cal Newport. Now, Cal, if you're watching this, you have changed my life as well, sir. On the YouTube channel, this little video that I'm in at the moment, this room where I'm recording this podcast was built because of this book. Cal Newport has written something here that is a call to each and every person who wants to do great work, but feels like you don't have the time, the resources, the space, or the mental aptitude to get great work done because you're being pulled in 10 million different directions. And I sure felt that as a business owner, as a father of 4. And my biggest problem, I have too many interests, right? I had hobbies that cannibalize other hobbies, right? I had all of these things going on. And when I read this book, I felt like this was one of the few books. This is definitely in my top 5 books, I think. It showed me that the fact that I'm not doing the work that I love is not because I'm too busy. It's not because I am sort of distracted. It's simply because I have not architected my life in such a way that good work can be done. So unlike Seth Godin's book, The Practice, which is about just getting the work out, Cal's book here is about how do I structure my life so that I can get good work out, right? It's how do I do that? He actually has a subtitle here, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. Yes, sir. So, I again don't like to give you any kind of, too much clarity in the book because I want you to read the dang things. But in here, he talks about how to set up a space, kind of like a deep work headquarters where you can focus. I literally built this room because of that chapter. I went down into my basement, tore apart a storage room that we weren't really using all that well. Put up electrical work. I did all of the plumbing. I did everything. I put up the sheetrock, painted up, put the flooring in. I went nuts. I made my deep work headquarters, and this is it. Tell you what, people, I'm very happy with it. The only thing I don't like is there are no windows in this room because it's like in the center of my basement. There's no exterior walls here. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Book number 4. This is book number 4. I wouldn't usually recommend something that I haven't fully read yet, but I'm halfway through this and so incredibly impressed that I just have to talk about it. I'm talking about it a lot right now in my live streams each morning on YouTube, where I'm reading live, is The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Now, this is a book that is often seen as a book on slavery, which of course it is. If you know anything about Frederick Douglass, he was a slave in the early 1800s who was raised in the most horrible circumstances. His slave masters were just the wickedest of people. Reading that account is terrifying. So this is a great book for several reasons. One, if you're interested in history or emancipation of any kind, just general rights of a human being, kindness, those kinds of things. This is a great book. But as I've read it, I realized there's a different category here of this book. I'm kind of a nerd for self-development, like personal development kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm in that camp. But anyway, always got to be positive, people. Wake up and have a good day. But Frederick Douglass here, this is a guy who I want you to think about this for just a minute. He starts off by 12 months old, is separated from his mother because that was the practice that would happen with slaveholders. They would separate the baby from its mother so that it had less support, less education, less love, less everything. And that was the first step in making that baby feel more like property than a human being. So you're raised in this situation where you have no clothes. Literally, the kids run around naked because they're only adults that work in the fields are given clothes. You have a shirt, I guess is what you have, but that's it. It's just a shirt and you're naked under it and you're running around like crazy. There's no bed. You're not fed enough each day. And it goes on and on and on. Not only that, but like the horrific beatings and whippings that he describes in here are eye-opening. And I'm grateful for the men and women that have helped us get out of this crazy mess of thinking, because anyway, I'm getting off track. As a personal development story, though, so Frederick Douglass is in this situation and he decides he does not want to live in that situation anymore. That is a powerful statement. So what he does is, instead of creating a violent revolt, instead of trying to kill his masters, instead of whatever, okay, ready? He decides to learn how to read. Boom. Then he decides to learn how to write. Now, know this, that in the early 1800s, if you're a slave, it is illegal to learn how to read or write. It is illegal to become educated, because, as the book says, once you can do those things, you are no longer good for what you were designed for, which is to get work done, right? So he has to learn how to read and write through all sorts of crazy tricks, which he describes in this book. And as he does so, not only will he find his freedom, but he essentially one day becomes almost an advisor, essentially, to President Abraham Lincoln. So think about that. You go from the bottom of the barrel, like below the bottom of the barrel, working your way up to becoming one of the most educated, well-respected orators, writers, and presidential counselors in the world. It's crazy, the professional development this man went through. He is absolutely one of my heroes. And I'm not even done reading the book yet. I love it. I can't talk enough about it. All right. This book here, 220-ish pages, right? I got the paperback book version, small. This one feels great too. If you can see that on YouTube, if you're looking at it, the cover is like, I just love the feel of a good book. Anyway, they did good with that. They did well with that. I don't know. My grammar is not good this early in the morning. It's not well. It's not whatever. I don't claim to be intelligent, people. I just claim to love reading. All right. Last book on the list. Let me take a quick drink here because my voice is falling apart. Okay, Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. This is the philosophy book that I was mentioning. I would put this under philosophy. Jordan, if you know anything about him, is a professor, and he also has a private practice as like a psychologist kind of thing. His take on life, I appreciate. Whether you agree with Jordan or not, he's all over YouTube and all over everywhere. The guy has definitely made a name for himself as probably one of the most well-respected intellectualists of our time. But not everybody agrees with him. And that's upon you to figure out if you do or not. However, what I really appreciate about him is he is well thought out and well researched and has studied both sides of the arguments that he debates in. Most people, when they go in, only learn their side of the argument and then they get emotional about it. Jordan does a really good job of trying to understand all sides of an argument. He then thinks about it, and then his responses are always well thought out. I'm a big fan of this man. This book, though, is great because it's easy to read. Let's see, page count here. Oh man, we barely made it on this one. Let's see here, 368 pages, right there. Okay, so it's under our 400-page mark. It is easy to read, and what I really like is that it's a compilation of 12 essays, and I used to not like essays. That felt like I wasn't reading a full book. It felt like a waste of time. But as I have gotten deeper into trying to be a better reader, I have found essays to be incredible tools. It allows the author to say what needs to be said in 10, 20, 30 pages rather than spreading it out over 400, 600, 800 pages, right? It's a really sort of portable way to get an idea across. And there are 12 of them in here. And they're really fun essays as well. They cover just some of these titles make me smile. You know, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Let's see here. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. There's some really good essays in here. Go check it out. Go read them. But again, if you are looking for book recommendations, there are 5 there. that have helped me, that have made me think of life differently, have exposed me to new ideas, have helped me learn new skills, have changed my life, my financial situation tremendously, and I am grateful for all of them. And that is the power of a book. So I hope as we dig into this final thought that you are walking away from this week's podcast episode knowing how to pick your first book. As a quick recap, and then I'll give you a challenge. Number one, we're looking for a book that is easy to read mentally. It should not be a fatigue on you. Number two, it needs to be small enough that you can carry it with you, that you don't have to, put it in a wagon and pull it behind you kind of thing. I prefer paperback versus the hardback because they're easy on my hands. Number three, and most importantly, please, for the love of all that is good, make it a book that is speaking to something you are interested in. Don't read the book because it makes you look smart or because it's checking off a box somewhere. Read the book because it's speaking to your soul, right? It's something that you love or that you are interested in at least. To go along with that, if you start reading a book that you think is going to speak to your soul and 20, 30 pages in, it's not doing the job, please stop reading it. That is not, you shouldn't ever read a book. Once you start page one, you're like, well, now I got to read all the pages because I started on page one. I got to finish everything I do. It's not what we do in the reading world. I actually have a 50-page rule. If by 50 pages, like I am just not in this book, I put it away and I move on to something else. So I would suggest setting up a rule like that so that you stay interested in the book that you're reading. Okay, here's my challenge for you to right now, whether you're driving or you're at work or you're at home, whatever it is, to hit pause for just a moment on life. I guess you can't do this if you're driving. As soon as you get to work, wherever you're going, hit pause on life and ask yourself this question: what am I interested in learning or understanding more about? Again, remember, the book allows you to learn a new skill or see the world from a different point of view. You need to start there. Don't just go to the bookstore and buy stuff, okay? What are you most passionate about right now? What do you want to understand better? Answer that question. And if you can clearly answer that question, the next step is to go to all of the wonderful books you've bought that are sitting around the house that you haven't read yet. And if any of those books speak to the answer to that question, that's your book. Let's get started there. If not, go to the bookstore and get your next read. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Read Well podcast. Again, this is where I believe it's more important to read well than to be well read. It's an honor to be here with you each day. I will be publishing a new episode every week. And if you could do me a favor, this is a new show. Obviously, we're in episode 2 right now. But if you could, just share the show with people that like to read. That's really what we're looking for. I want to build a community here of people that take reading to the next level and are interested in digging in. Share the show. Potentially, if you're feeling really generous and really kind of, feeling good about yourself, head on over to wherever you consume your podcasts and give me a review. Let me know how that's going. I would really appreciate that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for all you do. I will see you next week. I'm out. If you'd like to take your reading to the next level, then head on over to our website at thereadwellpodcast.com. There you can get access to my weekly newsletter as well as up-to-date show information. Also, don't forget that I learned software development on the side just so that I could build a program to help us make better book notes as we read. If you're interested, go to highlightish.com. Think of highlighting a book, but add ish, I-S-H, at the end. Highlightish.com. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next show.